double kills anymore. It is SIUE with a clean kill feed, and you already have Plasmid on the rotation to new.
He's put some resistance together. Slow-mo on 3. Takes a couple of shots. He needs to take down Sauce, but just a little bit too slow to confirm. So he'll keep his life by playing bottom first floor. It'll be 2:46 where it stops for the Cougars. St. Clair with numbers, controlling around the hard point, and with a couple of members that are actually setting up a bit of a perimeter. They're trying to force Southern Illinois from the front. Good read from Gorilla, clears off topside radio. Brandon gets the third, and St. Clair with all 4 members will get the full team wipe. St. Clair right back in this game.
They're zoning him away as well. Gorilla's pushed up. He's waiting for pushes to come through from patio. Unannounced them, there's 2 players from SIUE inside of radio. They get the kill, but it's a trade. Still 3 players are worried out inside the hard point.
Could come to an end right here. Priestley gets number 4 in this life to the pistol. It's just pistols at dawn right now for St. Clair. 240 and 248. The contest coming out, but are the kills convincing enough? Southern Illinois are coming in one by one. The stun locks. It's Gucci for a double. Mythic can't get the full-on break. It's down to Slow-mo. If there was ever a player that you wanted, it needs to be in from the stairs. He gets forward. It stops it at 248. Bang! Slow-mo for the triple. SIUE, though, have to get the rotation, and they're there first. Are you kidding me? The Cougars looked like they were down and out, but the only thing left to do is pop off and let St. Clair know.
Whoa! What a...
Damn, that's a reminder about what happened, folks. Last time these 2 teams faced off, of course, Slow-mo popping a little 3K, just a little spicy one to push them forward, and in the bracket, of course, put St. Clair out in top 8. My name's Infinity, joined here by Proper on the cast and test. Of course, you guys would have known that if you would have rightfully been paying attention to any of the series we've had so far, which have been pretty fun. Not so much if you're a Cougars fan, because they just got annihilated in their last series. They're hoping for a better go of things here.
Yeah, now you have to have a bounce back versus St. Clair. And if you are unable to take down Michigan, that road becomes a little bit more treacherous if you are an SIUE Cougars fan, or even a player for that matter, because St. Clair, they are the number 2 team in this Midwestern region, just behind Northwood University. They've only dropped a single series, which, you guessed it, is against Northwood, the number 1 team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for you guys who didn't tune in to the last series, here's a little reminder about what this Cougars roster is made of. This is D-Day, Slow-mo, Plasmid, and Anchor. Honestly, look, they didn't have a good go at things last series. Let's get out of the way. I mean, today hasn't been great for them, I think, overall. Yet still, you can't deny the potential on this team. We've just seen what Slow-mo was made of in the Vanguard season. You also had some plays alongside Plasmid like that in the last Control. It was just translating that into success, which they failed to do.
Yeah, I mean, as far as for what it's all said and done, Slow-mo is that explosive player. We saw D-Day having to pick things up as far as the search and destroy is concerned. Slow-mo looks to be maybe, I want to say, kind of hindered as far as the difference, as far as the movement is concerned in between Vanguard into Modern Warfare 2. Can't slide cancel his way around corners and get into these very annoying and quick positionings, but he has the mindset. He's got the play style, and it needs to come through versus the roster of St. Clair.
Yeah, big ask, I think, for this roster to really make some improvements in between the last series and this one. I think that's the big thing. Again, getting 3-0'd is never nice. Getting 3-0'd by a team like that, yeah, in that way, yeah, not good. Not good at all. St. Clair, though, this roster has been disgusting this year so far. Priestley, Brandon, Blaz, and Relazed? I don't know. You're going to have to tell me how to pronounce, because my pronunciations are awful. Anyway, this roster, they've been pretty good. I think it's fair to say, right, Andy?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that me and Austin kind of ended up at Relayed is how that's one that's going to end up being pronounced. But yeah, the St. Clair roster is absolutely nuts. I'll always remember this. I brought it up last time that I was casting this team along with Visions, is that Priestley, when he was actually scrimming against that old Northwood roster just last year that had both Chris Radial and Kevin Fame on it, they both came up to me and said, this Priestley guy is nuts. He's the real deal. And he absolutely is. He's one of those diamonds in the rough, if you will, for collegiate esports as a whole, that he's very, very good at the game that he's committed to. For Priestley, it is Call of Duty. This guy makes some really good decisions, and it enables a lot of his players on his team to be able to be fundamentally sound in hardpoint, to be as dominant and decisive as they are in the objective game modes as well. Look for Priestley to make these impactful plays to open up the floodgates for the Saints.
Yeah, and I think it's worth saying as well, you know, the vast majority of the St. Clair Saints wins this season have been 3-0s or 3-1s. I don't think they've gone 3-2 at all in any game. The only loss they've taken, of course, is to, surprise, surprise, we're in the Midwest, Northwood 0-3, right? So that gives them a 7-1 record overall, and it gives them a pretty good record across every single game mode. They're good at hardpoint, they're good at search and destroy, they're good at control. And that will give them a wide berth when it comes down to the map mode's veto process against the Cougars. The Cougars, on the other hand, the conversation hasn't magically changed from that last series, Andy. The weaknesses and the strengths very much remain the same. If they're going to win any maps in this series, it very likely is going to have to be the hard points and the search and destroys.
Yeah, because, I mean, even in a situation where we sat here and talked about the Wolverines being, good at search and destroy, you can just see that how quickly that gets flipped on its head, losing the way that they did versus Michigan. So even that 5-2 search and destroy record that is there for the Saints, I'm not necessarily going to put too much stock into it just because SIUE have been to more Game 5s and they've been able to win their search and destroys. It's all about on the day for me. And again, the Cougars need to bounce back in a massive way. And as far as hardpoint is concerned, with how slay heavy I know the Saints roster can play with, again, not my first rodeo watching this collegiate team play. This map number 1 is going to be very interesting to see how well the Cougars do stay alive as far as their day is concerned.
Yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle, I think, for sure, again, especially considering what we know so far for the SIUE roster or the Cougars. Here's a look at the map set then. You and I were kind of always looking out for kind of what has remained from the last series that we just saw from any given roster if they appear again. Nothing. There's nothing here at all. It's Fortress Hardpoint, Hotel Search and Destroy, LSALO Control, Mikado Hardpoint, and Fortress Search and Destroy, of course, those last 2 maps if we need them. But yeah, I mean, like, this is a different map set entirely from what the Cougars just played.
It might not be fully entered. There's a few stats that are missing as far as what maps were played, but for all intents and purposes, really the only thing that is here for St. Clair as far as a Fortress Hardpoint is concerned is the time that they played it actually against Wichita, which off of just how things have looked for that team versus other top teams here in this Midwestern region, Division 1. There's no team to just scoff at, but St. Clair did beat them 251-84 on Fortress. Again, this is the type of map mode combination that is really hindered off of your SMGs to be able to feast off of your AR's presence across the map. If they're holding mid lane, your SMGs do need to get inside art and just work some of those top rails positions when it comes down to these money hills. That could potentially be 2, 3, or 4. The rotations also need to be on as well. And the reason why I'm speaking so fundamentally sound just about the game mode that is Hardpoint is because SIUE Cougars, they kind of fell a little bit short. They almost ran out of gas in their hotel map number 1 versus the Wolverines not just too long ago. The St. Clair's roster is very fundamentally sound, Brody. Will absolutely eat them alive as they show any semblance of what we just saw for them in their map 1 in the previous series.
Yeah, the thing is I will say about that map number 1, because we noticed it back in the series versus the Wolverines, was the Wolverines were actually outslaying them in the first set, and yet the Cougars were actually keeping up, right? I don't think St. Clair are the kind of roster to be outslaying a team and not be leading the hard point. That's what I will say. I think, again, they're 7-1 for a reason. They're, 8-2 hard point for a reason. Like, you don't get that kind of record by not being efficient with your kills in hard point. So there will be a fundamental difference here in between the opponents when it comes to hard point. Cougars have to be flawless, I would say, to take this hard point away. But as we said, I mean, we kind of talk about kind of the overarching story for this series. You've got to win the search and destroys, and you're going to have to find a map to take away from the St. Clair roster somewhere else. It's probably going to be a hard point, if we're honest. So coming out the gate swinging is super important to momentum. And let's be honest, I think Fortress is a relatively forgiving map, I think it's fair to say, right? I mean, like, if you lose a rotation, just go rotate towards new, because you can turn that into a money kill. We've seen that a lot with teams like maybe not having the best start, not able to flip the spawns or the P1 and P2 kind of back-to-back money rotation, as it were. And then, going over towards P3 and getting a full 50, 60 seconds off that hard point because you didn't do it on P2. Like, you can do that on this map. And I think that's kind of where Cougars need to focus here and towards this map, is just making sure that if you don't have a good go of things on the previous hill, just mentally reset, get towards the next one, make it a money rotation.
Yeah, because, I mean, you're really trying your best to make money rotation really stick.
I'm trying, buddy. I'm really
it's
trying.
Adorable. I mean, I feel like everybody that just, watches the broadcast is, hearing you say it. For me, it's literally every single time because we cast everything together. So it's just I promise you, chat, this guy is really trying his best to make money rotation stick.
Please, guys,
and
please. It's
also a way just, to kind of, go off of just what is a hilarious statement that you're trying to make stick there, my friend, is that Fortress is the type of map, especially in the mode of Hardpoint, that can escape from you very quickly. If you continuously try to battle for that scrap, then you can almost get, again, reversed on when it comes down to your money rotations, Brody, to where that enemy team just finds all of those gunfights and then starts turning all of their scrap into initial just because you're overextending at what you feel is the right time, but you don't have the presence on the map to be able to take those gunfights and get that positioning on the map. That's where I feel like a lot of CCL teams kind of fall short, is that they try to bite off more than they can chew, especially in a respawn that is Fortress Hardpoint this year. When you start looking at the end of this overall stage, these are some of the top teams that we do have in this region. They cannot exemplify that here in this stage.
Yeah, it's kind of weird in a way, isn't it? Because we look towards these two rosters and kind of where they currently sit in the power rankings, obviously. I mean, we're dealing with two relatively high-seeded teams, and at least in the community top 25, right? I mean, St. Clair, obviously, at 7-1. They're going to be number 6. They're literally just outside of the flawless teams throughout the divisions. And then, obviously, the Cougars as well at seeded number 11. I mean, that's not a bad seed to have, is it? You know, you're still in the conversation to at least go pretty far in the 2023 CCL season. So this is a really important match, I think, for the Cougars to really try and establish themselves as a dominant threat, because they haven't really looked that way. I think quite disappointingly so, especially when you compare the performance last season. I know that rosters are not the same, Andy, I know that much, but especially when you look to kind of what they were able to achieve in the 2022 season, what was it, top is where they finished in 2022. You want to have at least a performance that gets you to playoffs, right? That's the big thing, is like the big goal, just getting yourself towards that end of season playoffs. And a big win versus St. Clair would at least keep them in the conversation of being like, hey, this is a team where, yeah, all right, they're number 11 right now, but like, they get the win here. We know that they can, on a good day, when everything is right, when the weather's correct, they can get wins versus the big rosters. That needs to be the attitude that I would have right now if I'm...
I mean, that's a fair attitude to have. I mean, when you're looking at some of these, it sucks to even call SIUE like a middle-of-the-run team, but I mean, that's where they are currently standing again in a juggernaut region that is battled around the St. Clair Saints roster, your Northwoods. Fighting Illini still look pretty good. Doing it for Dan Ghosty as representing Optic Texas. But regardless of the matter for SIUE Esports, this is, again, where a lot of your question marks do lie, whether they are scrimming these top teams in their region behind the scenes. How do you truly gauge yourself versus these top teams, and that then justifies what really does need to be worked on? Again, we are coming down to the wire when it comes down to these overall group stage matches, that these things are starting to really run out, on March 21st. So really towards the end of the month, even if you do guarantee yourself to qualify playoffs, this is now the time to read the situation on what needs to be improved once you do start facing even tougher competition.
Yeah, again, it's kind of nice, right? We're at that point of the season with the penultimate week. I'll keep on saying it. This is the penultimate week of league play. You've got one more week left to really cement yourselves in a good standing, to get yourself like a bye, is ultimately what the top 8 of Division 1 are actually looking for here. So, got one more week to really make a good impression beyond this one. So far this week, the Cougars, their impression has been less than desirable. We'll see how they get on, though, versus the St. Clair Saints. Obviously, this is a very different, a much more formidable St. Clair roster than what they faced up against in playoffs last season. Oh, we need to see the Cougars having a good start here in Fortress, because if they don't, especially off the back of getting 3-0'd in the last series, their mental might well be in the bin.
Let's see. Can't allow it to happen, honestly, especially for this SIUE roster. They showed really good composure, especially for the returning players. Slow-mo, Plasmid, D-Day. All showed it on land. Need to have it here. Ooh. Versus the number 6 team. That is St. Clair. That nade is scary to say the least. But hey, SIUE Esports do open up with a little bit of map control. At least they should have. But Priestley was holding his irons. Realized we'll get the last kill. Good opening rip here for St. Clair.
We should do some housekeeping, by the way. For those of you who are maybe St. Clair fans here, you're here just to kind of jump in the series. You weren't here for the last one. John Deere and Big Country, that's Slow-Mo and Plasmid, respectively. Wondering who those guys are. Apparently they wanted to be farming equipment, or tractors more accurately, coming in this one, but hopefully they're a little bit more useful at playing COD than that. But regardless, right now, SIUE looking for control over P1. And right now they are actually getting it. Still a little bit of time to get, but as we talk about the fight for P2, things going much better for St. Clair. It's Relays and Priestley able to get a kill apiece. Brandon will take out his teammate with a not so well placed stun, but as I said, generally speaking at the moment, things looking pretty good. SIUE though will be able to contest through open and closed doors. Brandon trying to piece these guys up, looking for a third. That nade might well take him out of the play. If that doesn't, well, Big Plasmid will with a double slow-mo for one of the back, and Plasmid actually picks up a huge triple, so an immediate flip now for P2.
That was actually a really good punish that came through from the Cougars, just to relentlessly hit that from the front, because they saw that the Saints wanted to maintain streets control, and albeit they did get back secrets, back pillars, whatever you want to call it, but SIUE Esports were just waiting for them to chow on the backside of the staircase, and again, it comes down to Slow-Mo. He's been gobbling them up inside of Art. I talked about it before we hopped into this map. If Slow-Mo can find presence around Art, this Fortress Hardpoint can become a little less scary for SIUE Esports, but as St. Clair, they bounce back. They'll soak up the scrap time. This is the right call for the Cougars to try to set themselves up for a money hill here at 3.
Yeah, big rotational battles going down at the moment. D-Day has a wealth of battles to win, and unfortunately isn't able to win even the first one. Still, though, Cougars are knocking at the door around the back line. They've got a fair amount of control. Blaslow doubles up and immediately swipes that control away. Just one more player left hanging around the joint. It will be Plasmid. He was able to still pick up one, and this is the annoying thing, is dealing with players when you don't actually have anybody watching those doors. Now it's all on Relays, who does pick up one. Almost makes a second realistic, but again, just not to be. So this is a big break coming through from the Cougars. Even if it isn't secure just yet, the battle will still rage on as players filter on through. This has been a very dicey hard point, but in the end, as the dust settles, it will be the Cougars in control for the back 30.
Yeah, that was actually a really big moment to showcase all the slide down the stairs. Blaz is just going to get the better of Slow-Mo, but that was a big moment for them to really showcase that ability just to continuously hit the gas, because if they just slowed up ever so slightly through that 20-second sequence, Brody, St. Clair would have set themselves up, and this would have been a very different scoreline for SIUE, who now are trying to turn this into maps control to try to then convert that into streets. Brandon has so much to do. He tries to go prone, but he's stunned up to oblivion. Trades are here to keep in mind you. Blaze is still top. Boat, that communicates wonderfully to Relay, so the initial wave to come through for St. Clair set up here at 4 gets scathed away.
Blas's presence around doubles at the moment is just so annoying. Now looking for more, swings down in the middle of the map, and oh my god, gets every single shot required, the headshot against D-Day to close things out. And I'm getting a little bit vibes about Blame all the way back in our first series of the day right now, because Blaz is really starting to piece up 4 in a row, looking for number 5, and the shots are not good to finish that one off, but that is enough coverage there for St. Clair to get a wealth of time with the back of those munitions hardpoint. They'll still have to give it one more wave of gunfights to get every single second, as the Cougars should continue to knock at the front door, quite literally, as they try to make their way through bottom single. But nonetheless, I mean, this has just been such a wonderful hard point. The final 10 seconds will go the way of Cougars, but a very important one from St. Clair.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big 50-10 trade coming through from St. Clair. You don't hold that, SIUE Esports are over 100 points, so on and so forth, but keep things even with that back 10 seconds being soaked up. And fair play, the SIUE Esports for wanting to hit that one more time. Now they have total control over towards that stable and around the spawns. Slow-Mo's on a 5 spree as well, just rotating in and around for maps, trying to figure out where these players are coming from, where he can get the 6th kill. A cruise missile would be big, good damage on the Brandon. Drop slow, takes him down. SIUE Esports remain in control.
Something about Slow-Mo against St. Clair, it would seem, as he's on 7 in a row, trying to make an 8, will be denied that, but yeah, I mean, 16 and 10, that big 7 spree from him gives them a wealth of control over the Blacksmith hardpoint, a hardpoint that generally speaking is pretty well fought over here on Fortress. Yet still a lot more time now to go the way of Cougars here in map number 1. Not controlling maps just yet. They've got to be careful because there is one player in the form of Relays that has pushed all the way through. And Relays picks up one off screen. Every single kill. Relays for the double goes the way of St. Clair in what is a very important sweep for map control.
Yeah, I just want to kind of talk about that as we go in towards the second set of hard points. That Slow-Mo playing against the style of St. Clair Saints is because they are really setting themselves up in a position to try to wait for SIUE Esports to take the chow to them, but no one was proactively taking the space, not through the majority of that first set of hard points, not there towards the end. So you can now see what it means for players like Relays, who takes that proactive approach, finds himself on a 5 spree inside of maps. It almost feels like a round of control here, brother, because St. Clair Saints are keeping SIUE trapped in towards the back. Relays position, albeit good enough to find himself kill number 6. Had a good look at 7, can't find it. SIUE Esports actually spawn out, so the rotation being threatened for 2.
Yeah, got to be careful if you're St. Clair here. Again, this game has been so back and forth between these two teams that this rotation might well be paramount to the victory. Over towards the rotation, it will be a nice little one and done, one punch there, whatever you want to call it, from one player D-Day inside old for the scrap time. Will go their way and put themselves just out in the lead over St. Clair as we look over towards the rotation. Already around the back line will be D-Day, coming fresh off the back of a boxing match for the rotation. Does actually lose it as Brandon peeks his way ahead around the back line. Blaz in for 2 around doubles once again. First wave is pretty good here for St. Clair, but close spawns around the street for the Cougars.
Yeah, streets control is big here for St. Edwards. When you think about it, you can fully flood this from the backline and force St. Clair to mostly play around Art, but SIUE are still hitting this. Inside of Art, bottom munitions, they fly. St. Clair kind of having to play on their back foot. They do have those close stable spawns, but SIUE, as slow as they were able to get themselves inside of munitions, St. Clair with those close stable spawns completely flip it back on its head. Their lead will grow.
Yeah, the reason I said wow is because St. Clair just completely wiped them. Like, that is a massive hard point for them. They get full control over it. And now, the Cougars, they need to make sure they hold this rotation. As we've said before, that this is what we were saying before we got in towards this one. You can be in these situations where you lose control of P1 and P2, and then you get a full 60 on P3. That needs to be the situation for the Cougars, and a good start to this hole would be Slow-Mo doing exactly that, now on 4 in a row. If he gets number 5, do not be surprised if the cruise missile comes down, because he would overlap it. Now looking to cause some carnage in the back line. Finally, they take him down. They were definitely on the hunt for a very long time there, St. Clair. And now their priorities can refocus towards the hard point. The problem is, of course, all the lanes are being watched. And Relays decides now is the time to bring the streak in. The trophy system, for whatever reason, doesn't actually protect the player inside the hard point. And now through the front comes Priestley for the double. St. Clair, they do break for a crucial back 25.
That's a big decision to be made if you are St. Clair, not only for the resource of the cruise missile, but to also try to take that 2v3 that they had once the cruise missile did land. That's what they worked with. St. Clair were spotting over inside of munitions, still push for that 20 seconds, and that's good time if you're SIUE Esports, and you're going to be really frustrated that you had to give it up just off of the resource advantage of the overall gunny that has been the St. Clair roster. Relays finds himself up to 26 and 13 on another 5-3 Brody. He's got a trophy system, but he's playing like he's got Daddy.
Realized one more.
Oh my.
Oh my god. Yeah, he's running score streaks, so that cruise missile will not come down, but it doesn't matter too much for Relays. His kills are enough at this point in time. He's providing so much coverage for the Cougars now. Wants to translate that into a 7th. Of course, he is going to be denied up top by Plasmid, who now trying to cause some pressure on towards Blaz, all the way down at 8 HP. It's a miracle that he survived this long, to be honest, and looking out towards the back will finally go down, but just like that, St. Clair, they're right back into it once again. Priestley for a double, Relays for a double of his own. St. Clair are doing it again. This is the exact hard point where this happened before they're 15 seconds away from victory.
Oh, I mean, you just feel like it's over. I mean, you can see SIUE Esports, they're trying to at least flood in through the double archway, but I mean, St. Clair, they're just set up in and outside of Art. Priestley finds 5 in a row, kills around the hard point as well. Oh my god. St. Clair just showed up in such a massive way, even letting them know at the end. I mean, there was just a certain gear that got switched because SIUE were just looking pretty darn cozy as far as the opening set was concerned. This St. Clair roster just turned up in such a massive way that they became so undeniable. I mean, Priestley was just always being the first one in, was being followed up continuously, walks away with the majority of that time. But, I mean, Relays, I mean, it's not every day that you sit there and say, okay, well, one of our ARs who's running trophy system is going to be good for 2, and he's hitting the flank, by the way. Go on a 5-spree continuously, what felt like maybe 3 times. It just felt like that's SIUE. The Cougars just had no answer to a flanking AR.
Yeah, I mean, like, what? They were really competitive in the first half of that game. They even got streaks on board for the Cougars. And then the second half hit, and it was just like, well, they had us in the first half. Not gonna lie, they didn't have us in the second. That much is for sure. St. Clair, they came out moving. And that P4 hold, I think, was just so big. I mean, like, they had it on the first rotation. They had it on the second as well. The second, of course, significantly more important because of the way in which they won the game off the back of it. But I think more than that as well, it's the transition of, right, we're taking the back 25 away from the Cougars in that play that you already described, Andy, with a great streak usage, even though I'm really surprised it even managed to hit. And then, of course, the 2v3 off the back of that. And then the transition in towards next, in which they had a stellar hold. Beautifully done by St. Clair. They just ran away with it in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a team that just absolutely starts to vibe off of one another and just can really relay around just their very comfortable setups. St. Clair are literally that team. That all of their pinches, all of their crossfires, SIUE Esports had no answer. The one team and the one player that did was Slow-Mo. I mean, that is a lot of engagements. 49 engagements for Slow-Mo, aka John Deere. 25 and 24 with 2,700 damage. He was playing in these corners continuously. Just the difference at the end of the first set going in through the entirety of the second is that St. Clair were aware of it. They were finding that trade onto Slow-Mo every single time, and then they just continuously flooded through one point of interest, one choke point, if you will, and just found the trades required. Again, Blaz showing up in a massive way, 23 and 22, 2,800 damage for him. Like I was saying, Priestley was that first player in, and also the objective king, it would seem. 2 minutes and 30 seconds within the hardpoint itself, 21 and 16 respectfully. The Relays is absolutely the overall juggernaut, it would seem. 33 kills. Just beaming everybody across that map.
Yeah, that's why they call him Relays, because he's got lasers for guns.
Good one.
Yep. I hate it when you say that, Andy, because it's as if I'm not funny, and it makes me...
No, that was a sincere good one. My fingers are not crossed behind my back.
Uh-huh. Alright, whatever you say, buddy. Anyway, listen. Tell you what was sincere then, the absolute victory from St. Clair. 250 to 164 gives them the victory required to start the series the way that they wanted. Again, we discussed why that was a big victory in the series, because the story for the Cougars really, at least off the face of the record, is that their only real strength, and I don't mean to say that that sounded really horrible, their biggest strength is search and destroy, which bodes well for the next map, but for the overall series, they're still looking to kind of steal a map somewhere else in this series, and now they've got to do it somewhere in 3 and 4 and win this S&D.
I mean, search and destroy, statistically, yes, it is their best game mode historically through the entirety. That is this group, divisional, regional gameplay, whatever may have you, but I mean, we saw this SIUE roster not a few minutes ago versus Michigan on El Asilo Search and Destroy, and they were really struggling to deal with the overall aggression and decisiveness that was coming through. And every single time that it felt like that SIUE were left in these very hesitant calls, they isolated themselves way too often, and a team like Michigan was just holding their angles, not giving them information. I have a certain feeling that St. Clair and their Search and Destroy, from what I saw from them previously in this year, Brody, are going to play almost very similarly and just adapt against SIUE. And again, we talk about it when it comes down to Hotel Search and Destroy. You have to have a certain amount of bag of tricks, a certain amount of veracity, if you will, to hit those angles, to find these timings, to hit these routes and get behind enemy lines and catch a team like St. Clair off guard.
Yeah, this is a very different setting, isn't it, over towards Hotel Search and Destroy. I would say it's like... it's a weird one for me, right? Because, you know, you would talk about kind of the aggression that you would like to see, or talk about kind of sniper presence, right? That wasn't really... that was there, I would say, for the Cougars all the way back towards map number 2. We talk about kind of D-Day early on in the Search and Destroy. That sniper presence has been... was big for them, so maybe they can kind of rely off that here in this one. We don't know what St. Clair has to offer on board for the snipers. And then, of course, on the flip side of that conversation, you have that kind of patented aggression that you want to see out of the Cougars to really try and respond to St. Clair. Just, you know, getting up in the face, finding routes which maybe they're not watching. Those are really the ways that you look to play a Hotel Search and Destroy. Honestly, the big thing for me is, I said it, they really wanted that hard point to try and gain some momentum, because now they've lost 4 maps on the bounce. This needs to be a win for them, or again, their mental, I don't know where it's going to be.
Well, better to showcase your mental, I suppose, online, and at least it may be something you could rectify, especially coming down to playoffs. I know that those SIUE boys, I talked to a few of them, want to make another appearance at the end of the year. Same could be said about St. Clair. I mean, they've been looking great all year long so far. Again, this is just regional matchup here in the Midwest region for Division 1. Their only loss, again, was to Northwood, where, honestly speaking, they kept things really competitive. I mean, the round 11 Search and Destroy was an El Asilo control. They lost it 3-1, but still respectable nonetheless.
All right, well, we'll see what bag of tricks, as you say, Andy, Cougars have here in towards this one, as we're on board with Slow-Mo to kick things off. The entire ensemble almost is here over towards B, but Blaz has got the read. Gonna get these kills. Stun up his Blaz, but he comes out of that stun all the more better, and there isn't an immediate trade. And I tell you what, there is a trade, but it's a trade in favor of St. Clair, as Blaz now would have been the last one left alive. The trade is good, though. There was a little teammate in there, if you're wondering what I was referencing, is St. Clair definitely going to benefit from that.
Yeah, I saw that. You don't like that team blood to come through non-round number 1. Again, very tough to be able to deal with what St. Clair were immediately looking at. I mean, they knew they were getting rushed on either one of the two sides. That either an audio cue came through from the player that was snaking inside of the kitchen desk area, but that rotation response came through so quickly St. Clair to get a player on that back half wall and deal with SIUE, who really their only play, 3 players strung through Freezer, was just to fly in together and maybe find a trade. Doesn't work out. St. Clair will take round number 1. Their opening offense is going to be heavily focused towards the middle of the map. They're trying to take A by storm.
We talked about the opening snipe situations. D-Day is apparently taking on Priestley for that. First snipes from both really will miss, but it is enough to unseat D-Day in that particular area. I was going to say first blood in for Relays, and the trade is good though. From Slow-Mo, now D-Day for the reposition. Gets a nice up-close and personal battle against Blaze. So the sniper's still in play here really for both sides. And St. Clair aren't really any closer to getting the bomb down. D-Day about to try and zone away. One head. Oh! Just, a side tear away from taking somebody's head off.
That'll give you a nice little undercut. Oh, Priestley just snaking. Gonna get the better of D-Day, who tries to go for the chow, or at least the information at the very least. He will get cut down. 2v2. 30 seconds remaining on the clock, and Slow-Mo's taking a very forward approach inside of info, which leads me to believe that he's got dead silence. This commitment for St. Clair, it's going to be scouted out. Yep, Slow-Mo got here because of dead silence, but the shots are shaky. Bombs should still get planted.
Yeah, I would have practiced a little bit more patience there in that situation, because that just lost them the round.
Oh, no, Brody.
I don't want to say it, but you gotta be better.
Look, it's search and destroy. You always blame the second guy. All right, it's Plasmid's fault. Should have traded out immediately. In all seriousness, I mean, you should have either had the opening damage, if not, no dead silence. So I can understand, I guess, how scared you would be if you're Slow-Mo just to move from that positioning, not knowing where the second player is located at in that 2v2. But St. Clair holds strong. I mean, they never gave up. They just made sure that they weren't being flanked. Played off the information that they were given.
Well, first snipes once again here. D-Day not going to be offered up anything towards that luggage side. Matter of fact, the player's getting aggressive here. It's going to be Blaz. I was wondering whether that stun would fly past him or tag. It does do the latter. Blaz still threatening here, and might be able to take D-Day out as well. Yeah, D-Day not well positioned at all as Blaz picks up not 1 but 2, trying to make it 3. Going to be denied here for the moment. That was not a wise push. She still might be okay, and absolutely will be, as Priestley, I think it was, that doubles up there inside statue. But yeah, aggression. Love to see it there from St. Clair.
I mean, they just didn't stop. And yeah, it was Priestley that pushes through statue. That player that was on check-in wasn't even behind the desk. And Priestley, just off the information coming through from Blaz, like you were talking about, he just finds the timing because those 2 players on the display case and D1 were so heavily focused towards the player top bedroom, top luggage, wherever they were. I don't remember, because Blaz just got the freest timing. It sets up Priestley to, again, push through the atrium, get statue, get behind 2 players, seemingly scot-free. 4 kills combined for SIUE Esports across 3 rounds of play so far, and St. Clair throwing a wrench into the system. Got some utility thrown by Relays over by A. SIUE Esports just holding mid-map. St. Clair moving their way across the restaurant side to B.
Yeah, immediate shots where this is coming from. And D-Day definitely trying his best there to imitate Blaze or Blaz from what he did in that prior round. Doesn't work the same, doesn't it? Doesn't have the same kind of track record there in that situation. Now realized just gonna losing his dead silence. It's okay because he catches one right above him in the form of Plasmid. And now the number's most certainly not there for the Cougars. Slow-Mo tries to put a stop to it, but is immediately stopped in his tracks. And now it's Anchor for the 1 versus 3. He'll have way too many directions to look here. Does have the coverage of the kitchen counters, but even they in that situation will not help.
Good heavens. I mean, again, you get gifted the first blood. D-Day, I mean, you got to respect what he's trying to find there, Brody, but not being able to even remotely be in a tradable position, being on the defense and trying to force a route like that is just so tough on a map like Hotel, because you don't know what corner's being looked at. You don't have the immediate information where the hit's coming from. I mean, fair play, Anchor probably saw 2 players when he chowed out over by Freezer, but you still don't know what's lurking in the middle of the map. Your teammates haven't found anything, so St. Clair just playing off the trade department on themselves 4 rounds in a row. The opening 4 rounds. Brandon is yet to die.
Yeah, it's got to take him down. Got to take Blaz down as well, because Blaz has just been an absolute nuisance. Switching over towards the sniper rifle, I believe that Priestley was carrying it previously. So, bit of a tactical play coming out from St. Clair. Bit of aggressive play coming out from D-Day here in this round, who has also put the sniper away over the Vaznev. As soon as he peeks, Blaz should have him. Oh, the quickscope not going to connect. Down to 50 HP goes Blaz. That nade should send D-Day for a run. And right into the, well, not so welcoming arms of Brandon.
It's just so good, isn't it? Like, Priestley gets the information, who's top bedroom, Brandon's there to watch it. Now, he gave up the timing, so Plasmin's able to get over towards the bomb site. He's stretching the plant. Brandon's not going to be able to find it. He does get that 6 kill, does have the cruise missile, but Relays does find the exit.
Yeah, defense relatively weak until Anchor picks up a double. Makes this a 2 versus 2 from a 2 versus 4. So now, Cougar's in an actual pretty powerful spot, to be honest. Brandon is so cracked out of his mind that he just tried to hit some shots towards Blaz. None of them actually connect, so he'll be well and good for the next gunfight. Blaz's sniper rifle has to be key to this play because time is quickly dwindling around. I don't think you're going to be able to tell where Slow-Mo is captured here as well. Blaz does put some shots in. Now it's Anchor looking for the ace in the round. Brandon will predict exactly where Slow-Mo is positioned. I think Anchor just wants to just chill in this moment. Just, you're on 3 in a row. Do not just die here on purpose.
Yeah. Don't want to be the potential of streaks to fully work your way inside of this map number 2. SIUE able to get themselves at least on the board. And it's all off again, just the, I would truly call it guts at a big country, aka Plasmid. Still stretches that bomb, even though his teammate got first blooded, knowing damn well that that player up top bedroom was not there. Puts himself in a winning position. Offense for St. Clair. Focus over towards A again. SIUE Esports taking mid by storm.
Yep, first blood for St. Clair once again. These, I think it must be like 90% success rate for St. Clair or whatever. I mean, that number is impossible. Like 80% at least for the success in these opening duels because St. Clair just looks so good on the first bloods at the moment. Hugo's looking to respond. It is once again Slow-Mo, that does it with the first kill. That should slow up St. Clair here on their push over towards A. But I like this reaction. They know that A is not realistic. They've got a big time frame to work with, so why not just make a journey over towards B?
Lots of clear. Not a whole lot of dead silence to do it. Warning shots even come out as well. Plasmid is just playing inside a kitchen. Oh my god! Blaz just flies in and rips him to shreds. Bomb being planted.
What does the re-entry look like here for the Cougars? D-Day not successful. Well, Slow-Mo is looking for the ace in the round. It's a good start. Actually has some time to work with here. It depends kind of where St. Clair actually position themselves in this 2 versus 1. Are they tradable? The first 3 shots are good from Slow-Mo, but the stun connects and just leaves them completely disabled in that situation. St. Clair, I mean, they've lost a round, but they immediately recover. Brandon hasn't died, bud. Brandon has not died still.
What is Blaz shooting out of his gun, man? He just jumped in there and Plasmid evaporated. Like, what? Those were all headshots with the Vaznev on a very tough head glitch. Brandon's yet to die. Lord. All right, let's see an offense here, SIUE. Figure that mostly needs to be played together because you have not been fighting trades versus the St. Clair squad.
Aggression is key. D-Day, I think he just gets, well, I don't even think it was a stun. I think it might have just been like a nade that tags him up. Tried a nade. They try to jump off the back of a nade that's hit you while you are going to be in trouble. But, well, the first blood is going to go the way of St. Clair. Immediate response from Cougars will at least tie things up here. Bomb now going to go down once again due to Plasmid's efforts. Now, you've got to be aware of the potential flank coming through from number 5. It's Blaz. He's been a playmaker time and time again. We'll have just spotted one crossing. That'll be Plasmid towards the back line. Waiting for the aggression, but we all know what Blaz is capable of. We all know that as soon as he swings out, he will be all good. Long-range shots in towards 1. Also, again, wary of that player in the back line. And while as Priestley takes down 1, now they know exactly where Plasmid is located. My God. I don't know what species of snake Blaz is, but he is the biggest, the baddest in the entire country.
Oh, no. Oh, God. Snaked on check-in for the loss. That is. Oh, God. So gross. He was 1 HP, too. You saw that one headshot comes through. Like, look at this. What, like, what do? You just saw, like, dude, Plasmid goes for the jump shot, just hoping he finds it. Like, that is the most annoying game of whack-a-mole you will ever see. Brandon finally dies, by the way. 8-1. Blaz finishes 9-3 as he is just ripping everybody he runs into apart, whether he gets the assistance from Snake head glitching or just his overall Vaznin prowess in general. That was a tough one for the Cougars. I mean, you couldn't trade. Like, there were no trades. They were getting caught off on rotation every single time. Somebody overextends. You lose the opening gunfights. But St. Clair's trades were just that much better. I mean, yeah, the teammate comes in, but St. Clair are just so good at reacting to whatever SIUE have thrown at them.
Honestly, I don't think it's even that deep, to be honest, but I just think St. Clair, round after round after round, just threw themselves upon the Cougars. And the Cougars just, like, didn't know how to deal with it. I mean, just look at this highlight reel. How many times is it St. Clair getting aggressive? Or is it St. Clair realizing that Cougars are getting aggressive and immediately just dismantling? Like, how many times has that happened in this entire replay package? St. Clair, man, they're nuts. They're just nuts. I love this St. Clair roster at the moment. The way they're playing is just insane. A 6-1 performance here in Hotel Search and Destroy. And again, we'll talk about kind of the implications of the series here in just a second, but big performances coming out from Brandon, who unfortunately, I'm really disappointed in you, Brandon, right? Because you went 8-1, great performance, bud, but you died in the final round. You could have been flawless. You let us all down.
I mean, it's still a pretty good KD ratio.
It is good.
Still pretty good. Blaz is 9-3, which honestly speaking is just that one of those players that you were talking about, Brody. I mean, what's a good old strategy as far as Search and Destroy is concerned? Oh, we're just better? Okay, we'll just beat you with the gunfights. Of course, the bomb would be playing when it's required, but it did feel like that there was a certain amount of disparity as far as SMGs are concerned, as Blaz was making plays continuously. Not for lack of their trying, I would say. I mean, Slow-Mo was always trying to put himself in those annoying positions, trying to find the same value in those ratty corners that he was, even on Fortress Hardpoint, to what little to no avail. But, man, this St. Clair roster is just playing with a certain amount of heat here in our final series of the night.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good if you're a Cougars fan. It's not good if you're in the Cougars roster, because St. Clair, ooh, they're looking spicy. 2-0 up now in this series. The Controller's up next, and if we learned anything from the last series, well, yeah, St. Clair here, look, it must be feeling pretty good about their chances. As we said, Control, the map is going to be El Asilo. Might well be the final time here that we see the Cougars and really St. Clair tonight. Will it be the final map of the CCL? We're going to make you find out. Howdy folks, welcome back here to the CCL 2023 season. Well, things not going so well if you're a Cougars fan, let's say that much. They're currently 2-0 down to the St. Clair Saints. And I think they might be praying to some Saints for an extension of this series. Because right now, yeah, those first two maps, I mean, like, they were competitive in the first half of Fortress Hardpoint. But beyond that point, it's been all St. Clair.
It's not looking good. I think we've made that much clear. Coming away from the Hotel Search and Destroy, where Saints almost get the full-on sweep. Brandon almost doesn't die. 6-1 on the Hotel Search and Destroy. And the Fortress Hardpoint, again, was competitive through, like the first 3 hardpoints. And then Saints were able to adapt, and their Slayers started showing up in a massive way possible. Things become that much more treacherous when we take a look at that map 3. Potential last venue here in this best-of-5 series between the number 11 SIUE versus St. Clair. El Asilo Control versus the Ottawa Braves did not bear any fruit for SIUE. The Cougars lost that 1-0-3.
Yeah, the odds are stacked against them, for sure. But look, it's Call of Duty Esports. If I've learned anything over the years, it's to never count anybody out before the fat lady sings, or whatever the phrasing is. Like, it can always provide a curveball for us here on the casting desk, right? So maybe the Cougars kind of learned their mistakes previously on this map mode combination. Who knows? But again, like, Saints, the way they're playing at the moment, if they even come out with, like, a shred of the same vigor they came out with in the Search and Destroy, the latter half of the hardpoint particularly, this is going to be a rough time for the Cougars. But maybe the Cougars can come back fighting. Let's see how they get on here. Is right off the rip, we have John Deere. Well, I always call John Deere. Of course, it's not John Deere. It's actually Slow-Mo running around in a tractor. Just running around in the middle of the map here, trying to farm some kills away. We'll only pick up one to start with. Now looking for a second one, and actually gets a nice little turn on there on towards another player in the form of Priestley. But the vast majority of these kills so far have gone the way of the Cougars.
I mean, bold setup coming through from SIUE Esports, where the majority of them actually focus over towards A, and they read it correctly. I mean, St. Clair, they walk into a blunder of crossfire and tower control. That player that was top tower, his anchor drops down, finds 2 on the flank. Last 2 players for St. Clair on this offensive push are up towards field. Brandon is that player that's last alive, while you have anchor towards the back. Should find one for free, gets traded out inevitably. But it's so much time shaved away. We're in the 27-second mark.
Yeah, good effort here, I think, from Cougars to, at least as you say, just shave some time off the clock now for St. Clair. Looking for a way to enter in towards this control zone. It's basically all of the back of Plaz at the moment. Maybe Brandon over towards that top side as well. Brandon might actually provide a wealthy amount of coverage for St. Clair, especially as one player in the form of D-Day tries to make their way through the top window. Now others coming through Checker's side. It's all going to have to be through one side of this control zone if you're Cougars to try and defend. Brandon trying to provide some coverage up top. Shots going in towards slow-mo. That will not be a damaging blow. It'll be about the relays to do exactly that. Kills now starting to come through from the Cougars in the defense at this point, but Plaz doing his damnedest to try and make these guys fight for it. There'll be one last look in the form of D-Day. Perhaps slow-mo, if he really wants to hit this, he will go for one, but no more than that. We're going to get an extra 60 seconds.
Yep, extra 60 seconds, and lives evened up. 16 plays up against 16. There comes a certain point in time where St. Clair had such a good setup that SIUE were really on the fence whether or not it was going to become too dangerous to try to even contest that A zone, but they wise up, they play for exits. The issue is that they were unable to get a player like Anchor inside of the house, so he's only pushed up towards field. Priestley elsewhere is able to find one all the way on the flank through the middle of the map itself, so trade's that much more important for SIUE to find to maintain this presence.
St. Clair at the moment just trying to knock at the door pretty continuously. To be fair, the life differential is not that big. Well, it's nothing at the moment. It's 13 versus 13. Time is the enemy for St. Clair, so they only really have a couple of hits here and not really a lot of map control to work with. They're relying on individual efforts, and that might well happen here from Blaz on the flank for one. Now looking for the double in towards this garage he goes. Nobody deals with him. Everybody is so preoccupied with the field side that Blaz is just able to roam free completely to do what he wants. But D-Day comes in with a double, and now everything rests on the shoulders of a player like Priestley, who this time, with 15 seconds remaining, has a few kills to get. Brandon from the alleyway will pick up one. Priestley will be stunned up. 8 seconds remaining now. Somebody from St. Clair has to jump. Anchor from far will pick up one. A player behind the boxes. Anchor will swing pretty wide and almost gets a shot towards Brandon. Next up, it's going to be Plasmid to try, but nobody can remove these players.
Relays is still alive. D-Day's from the fence line. He gets assistance. Blast takes him down. But it's slow-mo that shows up. The wallbang shots through the fence. Keep SIUE in the game, but not without a fight. I mean, I was going to be even impressed with the fact that they walked away with 3 segments. I mean, the fact that St. Clair still walked away with a total of 5 segments and keep lives even there at the very end, I'd be having myself a big old smile on my face if I was St. Clair, Brody. But, man, SIUE get absolutely tested on that defense at continuous amounts of times, overextending, trying to get themselves back into control over right A. Lives then were evened up after a very impressive opening for SIUE Esports. St. Clair just continued to poke and prod, find these players that are lurking around top kitchen, bottom lockers, be able to find the openings that they did.
Yeah, great start from the Cougars. A little bit messy, but they get it done in the end. Now let's see what their offense is like. Gonna be Plasmid, or slow-mo, excuse me, trying to make his way through the middle of the map. Already trades going down around him. He was already tagged up, so as soon as someone challenged him from an off angle, he was probably dead to rights, and that's exactly what happens. Now it is literally Plasmid trying to do some damage over towards A, able to get one, but Relays will trade out. The trade game will continue here. A couple more players to deal with. If you're a St. Clair, one of them is Anchor, who is already down to 12 HP. He needs help from slow-mo, and he needs it right now, and that help will arrive just in time as slow-mo picks up not just one, but a double. That should be A.
He has number 3 right around the corner. Funny enough, that player is actually up top. That's Brandon, so excuse me. 6 seconds out on the board, and SIUE are fighting transitional gunfights. Hold on a second here. Yeah, the one player Relays, he's all the way in the back. You should know that spawns are going to be over by Pride Rock. Can slow-mo find this big engagement down low? It's just a trade in the helpful of Anchor. So now SIUE, they just have to have these 2 players stay alive towards this top kitchen window. Find where St. Clair are located at to help their teammates off the respawn.
That's the truth for St. Clair at the moment. Blaze is one of them. Somewhat. This is a problem for the Cougars. It doesn't matter what you've done previously to this. You need to remove those players from arena around the green. You could force your way through. That's not exactly a strategy advised. Instead, they will actually remove Blaze from that position. And now it's going to be trying to make your way through this football field. Maybe will be the first player. Gets involved in a 1 versus 1 against Relays. That is just not exactly desirable at all. And now starting to face pressure as well as Priestley doubles up, looking for number 3 and towards the alleyway, and Priestley just bullies them. Blaze will pick up number 4, but that 3 piece from Priestley just completely clears the map and resets every little bit of progress the Cougars had made.
Down by 5 lives, just under a minute left here for the Cougars in this offensive attempt. Would love to be able to win this via segment progression. Would also just love to even things up as far as ticks are concerned. But just when you feel like that there's an opening engagement that starts going in the favor of SIUE Esports, St. Clair, again, their trade game is so good. There's one player that's pushed all the way up. It's going to be Plasmid. Looking to make a play. I believe he's up top on Barbecue right now. The rest of his teammates still struggling, even fly where Blast is located at.
Yeah, big call by Blast, or by DJ there to take Blast down. On the other side, you were talking about Plasmid. He has also fallen. So the secret weapons, both these two teams down and out. Count. Out. It is just a plain old button heads on the control zone and seeing who comes out on top. Blast trying to make his way through tools, though. Essentially for a flanking from behind to catch a couple of players off guard. Not going to get the opportunity to do either of those things, and players now falling around him. So this is all on both Blaz and Relays around the point. Relays picks up a double. Blaz for the third. Just one more player. A 1v1 on the point, and Blaz will win it. Massively done. Brandon takes him out with a nade, but I don't know if anybody can touch at this point. D-Day might be able to find it. 0.7 seconds on the clock. He does exactly that, but nobody else could do anything. He needed to pull off a miracle and is not able to get it done. So 1-1 now on this control.
Defense for defense we go. And if it continues on with this manner, again, it's very likely that we might see an offensive round occur at any level of Call of Duty, just because it always comes down to that one good hit, that one good 3-for-1, 4 dead. You can show presence on the zone and spawn the enemy team out. But if it continues on with this defensive affair, keep in mind about that segment progression and life lead that SIUE Esports are lacking right now. Trailing by 2 segments will be the overall swaying factor for a round 5 defense if it continues on with this way. But St. Clair, their opening rip in their opening offense was not a good one, Brody, but they still clawed away with 5 segments at the very least.
St. Clair trying to make their way over towards B to start. We've had numbers in favor of St. Clair at least to kick off this offensive effort, but not really enough to actually secure any actual push on this point. Blaz on the other side of the door, though. Tries to outplay with the door mechanics against Plasmid, but not going to outplay him in that particular scenario. So a fair bit of the round now has been shaved away as St. Clair continue to hit this drum that is B. And as a couple of kills do come through, they completely clear this B point. Things looking pretty hot for the St. Clair roster.
It's just so good. St. Clair just slow roll their way up through the fence line, through the field, and they just wait for SIUE to try to overextend and find themselves some information. D-Day takes down a teammate onto slow-mo. The Priestley's still alive on this B zone. Relays can wait for the regen. He's got tools locked down, and there's players up top. D-Day's the only one that's really in a position to try to deal with it. Does deal with the player on top of the zone, but he still has player in his upper halls.
Yeah, they've just done such a great job at just shaving so much time off the clock. To be fair, I think St. Clair had a part in that play, right? Because they did hit B again, which is not really advisable in the scenario that we're in. But now, St. Clair, they're rushing to try and get some progression over towards A. Of course, ticks is something that we do count over here towards El Asilo for a potential defense in round number 5. And now, slow-mo trying to put a stop to this capture from the back area up top. Not going to be able to get anything done there as Blast takes him down. Still one more player close by. It's Plasmid who, well, gets immediately eviscerated by Priestley. One on the flank now as well is going to be D-Day, and he gets dealt with from Brandon. So this should be an A capture here with all 4 players on the point. Now it is just going to be 3. This one's done, so let's have an extra 60 seconds, shall we, folks?
I mean, we're adding an extra 60 seconds, so there's transitional gunfights again. Look at how fast those gunfights came through, and Relays pops up top Barbecue. He's got 2 players that spawn in over by the shack. The nade should at least confirm that. He is tagged up heavily by 20 HP, so he can't watch these players in the backside of garage, but that's fine, because Priestley finds them both, gets traded out top kitchen, but you got Brandon that's still pushing up.
Yeah, big overkills there from the Cougars to stop that immediate transition, but they haven't fully stopped it. That's the problem. Brandon pushing all the way through now and could cause some serious problems on the defense. I think Plasmid very quickly recognizes that he needs to remove Brandon from position, but not able to do it. And now Brandon could really start to cause some problems. Slow-mo just completely adores him. To be fair, I think slow-mo, you can see him just like run straight past. Someone else can deal with them, and that's exactly what happens as D-Day takes them out of the equation. So really their biggest weapon in this fight has just been taken down as St. Clair sent for the respawn point.
The game clock down to 28 seconds. 12 plays up against 8. St. Clair are looking for one good wave of kills to touch that zone and stall out the clock. And Blaz might have made the play up top. Doesn't even utilize Dead Silence quite yet. Opening shots is good onto the second. Plasmid stood no chance, but Blaz gets traded out. But that's the opening. The clock being stalled out, but they can't stay alive. Relays needs to extend this play, but simply cannot in time. It's all up to Brandon.
You've got no players in power positions, to be honest. If you're Brandon, I wouldn't even bother stopping the clock. Just try and get some kills around this point. Make it obvious, well, less obvious as to where you're actually located. 3.5 seconds down the clock, but as you're not going to any AA through that fence, a couple of kills do come through. There will also be somebody that touches, but a final double that does come through there from the last remaining player on the point gives Cougars the victory. And yet, towards the end of that final push, Andy, I really did feel like they just weren't getting in any power positions. They were just kind of like throttle themselves towards the point and hoping for the best. That's just not going to work. And especially early in that round there, I think St. Clair just took a little bit too much time trying to hit B when they probably should have just gone for A a little bit earlier. But anyway,
yeah,
doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's unconventional, right? Again, you fail to hit over towards B. You spawn parallel over towards A, but you still feel like you can push over towards B is an egregious decision when it comes down to an offensive round, especially on El Asilo, but still able to walk away with those 3 segments of progression, and they kept lives respectable. We'll have to see what SIUE can manifest here on their offense. Again, opening breaks have been pretty good for them. And Slow-Mo doesn't even commit to dead silence on this opening rip. Does find the first. Works wonderfully for Plasmid on towards the second. Got presence at A early.
Here we go. Sensible decision coming out from the Cougars here to try and grab A. Up top. Plasmid looking to do some damage. In for 1. Spots out the second in the form of Blaz. Needs to be careful, though, because he's not just facing down Blaz, he's also facing down a second player as well. Make that 3 from St. Clair. And this is a smart decision coming out from Plasmid. While the rest of his team, they deal with these players directly, while he could come on a flank, but that flank comes a little bit too late. Now he needs to do everything himself. Only in for 1. That's all he can get as the point is cleared.
All of that bloodshed just for a single segment, and now we're down to under a minute. And SIUE Esports are setting themselves up for another A hit. Are they going to expect Priestley in this corner? Doesn't even need that silence. He finds the kill, can push through.
They can. Haven't chosen to do so just yet. Now Priestley, there it is. The flank will pick up the first, but no more than that. Now effectively a 2 versus 2 in and around this point as time is not just ticking down anymore. It's draining down. There's 40 seconds left for the Cougars to make this work. First blood is good. Up top, though, from Blaz. Again, an unconventional spot. They don't quite expect it. So off the back of it, Blaz is able to pick up 1. Surely not just turn around on towards Anchor. And will not get the opportunity to do so as the point is fully cleared now. I don't think there's any stopping this.
I mean, if you are St. Clair, you can put a player like Relays, you can see looking for a couple of exits. That'd be fine, but you don't want to lose more lives. I will hold this 2-life lead, hold this positioning. Brandon, throughout the entirety of that, was just inside a field. Now he's top house with an AR. Gotta be wary of this if you are SIUE.
The trade's going down at the moment. No! Nice knife coming in from Priestley for the double. That is disgusting. It's going to be pinstripe kill feed again. This does favor St. Clair overall. They've got players push forward. There is a little bit of presence in the form of Slow-Mo, who does clear quite a bit of space in the middle for the Cougars. That is going to send St. Clair for a worry just a little bit. Baz will be careful of players coming on the flank. As a matter of fact, Brandon, the player pushed all the way up towards green, does get shut down. So now this becomes much more immediate for St. Clair to try and clear some of this space around the back line. Big Country Trust find their way through. Is going to be shut down. Slap to the face from Priestley. But again, the kills are starting to overwhelm here from the Cougars. They're looking pretty good, and that's a massive one from D-Day.
Anchor, though, I mean, he's only able to find 1. He didn't have assistance apart from D-Day like you were seeing up top. Just trying to keep these players at bay. So the reinforcements for SIUE thought that they might have an open opportunity to get over towards B, and to be fair, it's becoming that much more wider. Tough shots coming through from Slow-Mo, player up top window. He should get shot out by Brandon. He's on the outer truck. But there's really no assistance here for SIUE. No trophy systems to keep these players safe. And St. Clair, along with all of their power positions that they have, should inevitably get these players off from this zone itself. They have the numbers as well. The zone control is great. Priestley finds 2. Down to 20 seconds.
Yeah, that might well be all she wrote. That's some serious heroics coming out from St. Clair there to fully wipe. Now they've got players pushed up once again. It just causes so many problems for the Cougars. Anchor is actually going to be able to run past. He has to be the hero in this situation. Just can't do it when in from behind. Priestley is shooting like that. That's 3 in a row for him. 7 overall on the spree. As he earns a cruise missile, that would be very useful in the final round of play. Because guess what, anybody? That's where we're heading.
That's where we're heading, and St. Clair got the defense, Brody. I mean, Priestley just spawning or picking up an AR off the ground. Here's where that play all started, if not just continued. And he picks up the AR off the ground and just goes to work immediately. Snapping on teammates, too. Good heavens. This is why I was talking about this guy at the top of the broadcast. He is there to put in the selfless work for a lot of his teammates in certain situations to help them shine. But when he's in that flow state, man, he is so hard to shut down. He has 34 kills. 34 and 25. through 4 rounds of play on LSU control on a 7th spree. Cruise missile in hand on a defensive round. SIUE have struggled to be able to transition from one zone over to the other. Though they do have going for themselves that at least they have a full capture consistently through the 2 offenses thus far.
Well, Cougars haven't exactly been entirely unsuccessful on their offenses. Let's make that clear. They've been pretty close to capturing them so far. But you need a wave of kills, and that's not going to help, frankly. Starting just as they left off in the prior round here at St. Clair, they're fully clearing the points. Priestley now with a dead silence. Not actually there just yet. Might well be able to catch one player off guard. Does exactly that. Things going from bad to worse here as Priestley is just bouncing around the map.
Just challenging everything. I mean, he's also able to stay alive. Anchor, one shot. He's trying to push up to get on this A zone, and all arguments aside, he's able to do it. But Priestley's still alive. Gets the audio cue to the SMG. Someone trade this guy. The only player that might be in a position would end up being Plasmid down low. He gets it done via Semtex, but this presence over at the A zone is just lacking because this St. Clair roster is just seemingly everywhere.
They're suffocating. That would be the word to use, right? I mean, it's just so frustrating to deal with. I mean, look, the life differential isn't too crazy at the moment. It's only was 4. I think 5 might be the threshold at which you start to consider it a little bit ridiculous, but 30 seconds on the clock here. It's one last chance for the Cougars, and St. Clair continue to aggress through the point. Plasmid is just being kind of cautious this one. Doesn't want to get too aggressive. Knows that Brandon is probably up top, or one player is up top. Didn't know it was specifically Brandon, but nonetheless knows that's where the threat is located, and every single time that Cougars get somebody on the point, they are swiftly ejected. One last go of things over towards B here for the Cougars. It's going to be Plasmid trying to pick up a double. He is going to be denied. Yeah, this one feels like it might be over.
40 in 26. Priestley has put on a marathon on another 3 spree. Blaz at 32 and 25. They have called game. No immediate answers. I mean, SIUE Esports, you could try to touch one of these zones, but it's just Anchor. Here on the B zone, he's going to have a big 1v1 inside of Tools. He's got assistance. They're on the way from field, but Relays finds the first. The streak's being called in, Brody.
Priestley wants to close things out here. Is there a trophy system on point? Well, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter at all. They just get it done with their guns. One last push here from Slow-Mo. 2.1 seconds on the clock. And he dies to a team nade. It puts 0.2 seconds on the clock. Anchor is here, but he's down to 49 HP. That is ultimately the problem. Now 0.9 seconds. They are getting stunned, barraged with everything. Nades, stuns, and guns and everything. St. Clair get this one done. And that was a much more competitive map than the other 2 in this series. But nonetheless, it is St. Clair that come out triumphant.
43 kills for Priestley. This guy was just going completely AWOL. The Cougars at SIUE had no answer for this guy at all. I believe that is 4,600 damage for Priestley. Like, good lord, he was untradeable through so many different lives. He only gets himself that one streak, but you shooting like that, I mean, that is just absurd with what he was been able to do. I've never seen a guy go unnoticed. He might have had the invisibility cloak, but he was just flowing across that map for what felt like 2 rounds in a row. Just SIUE just had nobody, at least even in the batting cage, that was ready to deal with this guy on this map. St. Clair look on a different level.
The funny thing is about it, like, it's just that beyond the closing moments of round number 4, and we'll talk about the entirety of round number 5, like, the Cougars were competitive. Like, they had slaying out moments. They were very good at clearing points, moment after moment. You know, even KDs, like, I don't think they were getting massively blown out the water by St. Clair. And yet, for some reason, I think it was, again, it must have been, like, during the last, like, 10-15% of round number 4, where St. Clair, I think it was, like, basically the full wipe that really did it, and then Priestley, of course, towards the end, his massive 7 spree. It's like, again, it's so annoying. They just found a 6th, 7th gear. They just found another form. And that form was something that was just too hot to handle if you're the Cougars. They just could not deal with it whatsoever. And to be honest, you do have to give Priestley his flowers. I'm not sure how many of those 43 kills actually came from the end of round 4 and entirety of round 5. I'd imagine it's quite a lot.
Yeah, I'd probably make a pretty big argument for somewhere near about the 20 mark. I want to say that he was, I mean, through 5 rounds worth of play, 40 kills or so. That's a lot of kills to be averaging per round, my friend. To be fair, his teammates were far, but not too far behind him with another 30 bomb to boot on the opposite side. This St. Clair Saints roster really making the argument why they are the number two team, here in the Midwest region for Division 1. Again, their only loss was in 0-3 versus Northwood University. They lost this map mode combination of LOC control 1-3 in that matchup itself, but man, 230 bombs, a 40 bomb, 27 and 20 for Brandon shooting bodies along the way. Slow-mo tried his best. I mean, 63 engagements is a lot, if you ask me, and 30 kills as well. It just, there's always that point in time. We pointed it out at the Fortress Hardpoint at the St. Clair Saints roster. They hit that level, man, and SIUE Esports just cannot answer it.
I'm stunned, mate. I'm absolutely stunned. I mean, look, I'll tell you what, we'll be positive here. The Cougars, they absolutely fought back in that control. We have to be positive in that manner. But, like, for this series and the last one as well, like, yeah, that was not a good day for the Cougars. That is a tough, like, back-to-back 3-0s. I'm not sure how their day started, man, but yeah, it didn't end well. Let's say that much. Here's a look back at that series for those of you guys who weren't following. Maybe you just popped in for the final map of the stream. The St. Clair Saints, they had a really good run through the Fortress Hardpoint, the Hotel Search and Destroy in particular. As I said, the Cougars much more competitive on the LSCLO control, but that was, as we always say, too little, too late.
Yep, just a little too late. I mean, it shows some semblance of life, but man, this SIUE Esports roster has a lot to figure out, especially ahead of the rest of their schedule. I mean, if you are them, at least you got some of your tougher matchups out of the way. I mean, you still have to face University of Michigan. We already know that was going to be a tough matchup. The St. Clair Saints gets pushed to the limit. But, I mean, versus PNW, you just feel like that if you don't blow them out of the water, that you just have so much to work on if you are SIUE Esports to find themselves back in the same limelight. I will say, again, a top 8 team. They were there at LAN on playoffs for a reason. This team is gross, but they seem to be shaken up as far as other top rosters are concerned.
Yeah, that was a day. That was a day. St. Clair come out on top there, and that one 3-0 performance from them. Unfortunately for the Cougars, they have to face down yet another loss to end the day. Not good. It wasn't a good day for them. Let's end it there. We're not going to rag on them anymore. They've still got one more week of play, as do the St. Clair Saints, to be fair, and all the other teams that we had on the stream tonight. But I think at the end of today, at the end of week number, what was this? I want to say 5 or 6. We're 5, I think we're in now.
Yep.
At week 5, at the end of week 5, I think things are pretty much settled now as to kind of who the top rosters are moving forward. I think much of that has matched our expectations, Andy, and which rosters are kind of sitting now in the mid-table and fighting again for those bye spots.
Yep, I mean, now we're all just looking towards playoffs. We're all just looking towards these inter-regional matchups at this point as well. Top teams from each region going up against each other. That's all accumulating and leading up to that inevitable road at the end of this season, where we do get to see the very best of the best of collegiate esports in Call of Duty duke it off against one another. It's setting up to be absolutely spicy, even for the top 25 power rankings, to see some of these teams play off against each other.
Absolutely. Well, before we go, I just want to give a final shout out to our sponsors, of course, Fandom and America's Navy. Just a quick shout out to the Goats and Glory esports team, which is we know that esports is a competitive environment that requires loyalty, teamwork, split-second decision-making, and effective communication under pressure, which, by the way, for those of you guys who didn't know, are all integral to various Navy careers. So the Goats and Glory esports team might well be for you. So shout out to our sponsors once again, as America's Navy and Fandom support us here at the CCL. But for this week, as we said, for week 5 of play, everything is done and dusted. We've had our teams competing. We've had our 3 matches tonight, and we're done for the penultimate week of play. Next week is going to be the final week of league play as we sort ourselves out here for all the final standings, get our teams sorted out